Water is under threat from a growing population. This is very evident. It is also under threat from increasing demands for agricultural and industrial purposes, as well as the impacts of climate change. By understanding the value of water and the different ways water benefits our lives, we can safeguard it effectively for everyone, that is for now and future generations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gibson. At this time, we now have remarks from the Minister without Portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Cooperation, Senator the Honorable Alvin Hill.
His mic is muted.
You say it? Oh, Mr. Bill, can you please unmute your mic?
Now that I'm unmuted, I can say to you that the phrase water is life has never been more significant given the challenges presented by the COVID-19 pandemic. The value we place on that statement is reflected in the observance of World Water Day on March 22nd each year. Globally, the phrase new normal is being echoed, representing a change in lifestyle emphasized by reinforcing cleanliness and proper hygiene practices for which water plays a critical role. The expanded role of water in minimizing the spread of the COVID-19 virus has resulted in increased demand by human beings across the world for this vital resource. It is with this knowledge that the theme, valuing water, gives the world renewed purpose in ensuring that water, although a renewable resource, is not wasted or depleted beyond sustainability. Jamaica joins many voices across the world in raising awareness about the importance of water, and the government of Jamaica is actively engaged in formulating strategies and participating in initiatives that will protect and expand the availability of this critical commodity. The government has implemented policies such as the National Water Sector Policy and Implementation Plan, which seeks to ensure access to potable water for all Jamaicans by 2030. The government has taken a multi-ministry and multi-agency approach led by the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation. As we strive to ensure that all households have access to potable water by 2030, the effort is underpinned by 5 pillars: safety, along the rules and guidelines of the WHO standards; convenience, access must be convenient to our customers or clients or citizens within 500 meters of their houses. We must have sufficient water so that our clients, Jamaicans, can get up to 50 liters a day per water, rather at least 50 liters a day for water. Our sources must be reliable. There should be reliable supply of water 24 hours per day, or there should be a reasonable and predictable schedule. Must be affordable, of course. Persons must not be prevented from having water because they are unable to pay. That's not acceptable. We need to make sure that as we observe World Water Day, I urge everyone to reflect on the importance of water in their homes, in our families, as we go about our livelihoods, our cultural practices, our overall well-being, and that of all our communities. By recording and celebrating all the different ways water benefits our lives, we can value water properly and safeguard it effectively for current and future generations. The government of Jamaica is working hard to increase water access. I urge you all to play your part and be water smart by using only what you need, conserving when you can, and assist the government to protect and preserve our precious water resources. On this World Water Day, we acknowledge that there are challenges, and we are committed to working to meet those and all the challenges we'll face in the future. So I wish you happy World Water Day, all of Jamaica. And I hope that you value water like I do. And I wish you well. Happy World Water Day. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I can't come to you now. Just forget.
Just a trick.
Hmm? Hmm?
Thank you, Minister Hill. 1, 2, 3. Okay. For those cogent comments, we are prepping to show some videos of a Vox Populi, the man on the street, explaining what water means to him or her in this instance. While we prepare for that, I wanted to bring up some highlights from our Prime Minister's address to the nation on World Water Day, pointing out that the government fully understands the need for water resources, and they have made many contributions with support of the National Water Commission, the Central Wastewater Company, the Water Resources Authority, the Rural Water Supply Limited, and other organizations. There have been initiatives to remove outdated infrastructure and replace them with modern facilities in the corporate area that will last for generations. They've created history in Junction, St. Elizabeth, where they have commissioned the first ever piped water system in that area through the Essex Valley, the Water Supply Improvement Project in Junction Square, which supplies more than 3,000 households. All right, we will now have our first presentation, which will be presented by Mr. Kevin Chambers, who is a senior hydrologist at the Water Resources Authority in charge of the resource data section, data monitoring unit, and he'll be presenting on the topic sustainability and managing groundwater resources. Mr. Kevin Chambers.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good morning, colleagues, and good morning, persons who have joined us virtually. Boiling Water Initiative, Better Decisions Impacting Water, which is a theme for this year's World Water Day. My presentation will be on sustainability and groundwater management. Now, first, what is boiling water? Boiling water, yes. Boiling water is much more than the monetary aspect of or the cost of water as a commodity. It is understanding and appreciating the finite nature of water as a factor that determines how it is managed, its equitable allocation to all competing demand, the conservation of water resources, as well as protection of sources, watershed and recharge areas to ensure sustainability. It therefore speaks more to its governance. Boiling Water Initiative was launched in 2019 at the World Economic Forum, dubbed Boiling Water Initiative. However, this initiative was conceptualized in 2016 when a framework document was presented to the high-level panel on water in Australia. Now, fast forward to 2019 when it was launched. This initiative showcased the United Nations water principle, of which there are 5. I will mention 2 here. 1, recognize and embrace water's multiple values to different groups and interests in all decisions affecting water. And the third principle, protect the sources, including watersheds, rivers, aquifers, associated ecosystem, and use water flows for current and future generations. The management of water resources is a critical aspect of valuing water. Management begins with determining water availability and assessing the demands for competing uses. Such as industrial, domestic, agricultural, and environmental. Management also includes tangible ways of protecting the water sources from anthropogenic impacts and encourages changes in behavior. Management of water resources is a scientific field that involves collection of surface, groundwater, and a compilation analysis of such data. It also includes the collection and analysis of samples to determine the quality of the source, which is an important aspect of valuing water. It also involves recommendation for protection and improvement of the quality. Now, managing water on the global level, looking at the water availability. Now, approximately 97% of the world water is locked in the sea. The remaining 3% is breakdown as follows. 70% is in ice caps, 30% groundwater, and 0.3%, less than 1%, as fresh waters in rivers and lakes. Managing groundwater resources. Now, let us look at water use on a global level. 70% is used for irrigation, 20% for industry, and 10% for domestic. On the local level, on the local level, 47% is used for agriculture allocation, 42% for domestic, and for industrial, 11%. Now, of the approximately 1% of fresh water is available for use for all these competing demands. Let us look at the groundwater resources. Of the approximately 560 million cubic meters of exploitable water resources per year, 70% is groundwater, and that is for Jamaica. Of the total water allocated for the country, approximately 805 million cubic meters, or 55%, is groundwater, and that is on a yearly basis. Now, allocation to the various uses from groundwater are as follows. Domestic, domestic is 44%, according to, as you can see in the figure there. Agriculture, 38%, or 303 million cubic meters per year. Industrial, 18%, or 143.8 million cubic meters per year, making a total allocation from groundwater of 804.9 million cubic meters per year. Now, in respect to the sustainability of groundwater, Sustainability of groundwater is dependent on its management. It allows for equitable allocation with a focus on aquifer viability and sustainability. What do I mean by this? Basically, from the moment that a permit is granted to development of a well, what is involved ensure that the aquifer is viable, it can produce what is needed, and that it is sustainable. Management prevents overpumping of wells and by extension, potential dewatering of the aquifer. And it also protects groundwater quality from saline intrusion. These are diagrams of water treatment plants. One is a sewage treatment, one is an industrial. Management ensure that groundwater is protected from improper treated industrial effluent and improperly treated sewage effluent. It also involves the protection of watersheds and recharge area. So it encourages that watersheds are not deforested, but because in so doing you prevent infiltration or reduce the amount of infiltration to groundwater. There is also managed aquifer recharge, of which we have one right in Jamaica in St. Catherine area, where which is an effective strategy to improve groundwater sustainability. And it's basically recharging aquifer from excess water from our rivers, in some cases from highly treated effluent, and in other cases from rainfall detention ponds. Another aspect of managing water is from the economic aspect, where there are fees, there are charges. For example, the WRA charges a volume-based fee, which basically is hoped to encourage particular behavior, and which we use in our research and water management project. So in conclusion, the Body Water Initiative offers a new drive for conservation, protection, management of water, especially of the Sustainable Development number. If the Sustainable Development Goal number 6 is to be met, it provides a framework for a systematic approach to better decision making on the boiling water, recognizing the awesome role it plays in achieving economic prosperity, social cohesion, and environmental sustainability. The WRA fully endorses this initiative, and by its mandate continues to manage Jamaica water resources to ensure equity in its allocation, its protection, conservation, and assist in providing awareness of its intrinsic values. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chambers, for an excellent presentation, showing us indeed the need to sustainably manage and allocate our groundwater resources. I'd like to remind our viewers on Zoom and on social media that you can send your questions. At the end, we'll have a question and answer section at the end of the final presentation, where the questions will be presented to the panel presenters. And so you can type them in Zoom, you can send them in social media, and you'll be able to have those questions answered at the end of the last presentation. Our next presenter will be Mr. Glaister Cunningham, who is the Vice President of Investment and Performance Monitoring at the National Water Commission. And he'll be presenting on the topic, infrastructure and the cost of producing water or valuing water, the NWC's perspective. So, right now.
Thank you for Senator the Honorable Alvin Hill, colleagues. Thank you for the circle. Presenting on valuing water from the National Water Commission's perspective. First, that is the background on the National Water Commission. It's a statutory organization which was established in 1980 through the amalgamation of the Kingston and St. Andrew Water Commission and the National Water Authority. It's governed by the NWC Act and operates within the context of the government of Jamaica's water sector policy, aligned with the National Development Plan. We are charged with the responsibility of being the main, but not exclusive provider of potable water and sewage collection and treatment services in Jamaica. What context do we operate in the water sector? We are regulated by 4 entities: the Ministry of Health, from a public health perspective, the Water Resources Authority, as we just heard, in terms of our abstraction limits from our water sources, Office of Utility Regulation in terms of the level of service that we provide to the public, and from the National Environment and Planning Agency in terms of our environmental impacts. Ourselves and the Rural Water Supply Limited report to the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation. And we also have a subsidiary, the Central Wastewater Treatment Company, which manages the Sudbury treatment plant. Next. We support the GOJ's development goals, which, as you heard, is universal access to potable water supply by 2030, as well as centralized sewerage systems for each major town and parish capital, as well by 2030. Our contribution is to, along with some other private producers, provide 85% coverage for potable water supply by 2030 in utility service areas and business. How do we currently contribute to this? In terms of our current operation, we currently have a potable water supply coverage of 75%, and 24% of the population is connected to central wastewater systems. As I said before, our goal by 2030 is to make it 85% coverage and 30% in terms of storage. Our customer base, we currently have about 518,000 customers, about 83% meter. We have 65 wastewater plants currently and 425 water production facilities delivering about 180 mega imperial gallons per day, of which about 54 imperial gallons are mega gallons are consumed. The difference between the two is referred to as non-revenue water, which in its simplest terms is physical losses, which is primarily due to leaks, or commercial losses, which is from non-payment of bills. Along with this challenge of non-revenue water, as you can see from the map here, we have an availability versus demand issue. You can see from the blue bars, that's where most of Jamaica's water is currently, north coast, whereas most of our largest population centers are south, primarily the KSA, Kingston and St. Andrew, and St. Catherine. Our challenge, therefore, because of the mountain range that passes through the center of the island, it's difficult and very expensive to transmit water from the north to the south coast. So we have to make every effort to conserve water and transmit it from where it's available on the south to where it is needed. We pursue a number of projects from our capital investment plan, which takes us up to 2030 at the moment. The NWC has implemented several of these projects through loans, grants, and GOJ financing. But to achieve universal access, it's projected that approximately $3.5 billion will be needed to improve the systems further to ensure water delivery of the highest quality, as well as adequate sanitation infrastructure to meet these standards. We're currently producing some pursuing projects in the KMA, including the Portmore Non-Revenue Water Reduction Program, the KSA Non-Revenue Reduction Program, and transmission mains replacement, including the 6-mile Spanish Town Road project, and soon to start the Stanton Terrace Herb-McKinney intersection to the Morrisco project. On the north coast, we are getting ready to start the Marmy Bay Priory transmission mains replacement, and we are hoping to start soon another parishes non-revenue water reduction program in the parishes of St. James, Trelawney, and Susan. In terms of wastewater, we currently have master plans in progress for downtown Kingston and Portmore and Port Royal areas, as well as Falmouth, and we are pursuing several projects in rehabilitation and upgrading of wastewater treatment plants. What are the components of our cost of our operating costs? Largest contributors, as you can see, are salaries, due to a lot of our facilities and means requiring a lot of human capital. Electricity, we pump a lot of our water is pumped due to our hilly terrain, as well as sewage. So 29% of our costs are attributed to electrical supply. Of course, due to our aged infrastructure, we have a lot of resources placed in maintenance and repair of our facilities. In terms of overall costs, just some numbers. Our water costs for 2020 amounted to approximately 26.5 billion Jamaican dollars, wastewater 8.7 billion, and capital costs 14.7. As I mentioned, this is not so much a drop in the bucket, but just a start. As I said, we need approximately $3.5 billion US dollars, or about 525 billion Jamaican dollars to get to the level of service that we would like to provide by 2030. Economic value of water. Of course, nobody here would disagree that redevelopment cannot happen without a proper water and sanitation infrastructure. Our investors will require an effective and reliable water and sanitation service. So this would mean that investors, for example, in the hotel industry, housing, manufacturing, and any other industry, would like to know that there is reliability in those two areas. It provides for our citizens hygiene and health requirements, improves our standard of living, allows for local businesses, small businesses, and micro businesses to prosper, and provides revenue to grow the GDP of the. Of course, efficient investment will retard essential. There is also, as well, the environmental impact of insufficient investment in sanitation services. There are other questions which we have not yet answered. We will probably depend on academia or perhaps hopefully someone else on our panel will be able to address some of these questions. What is the value of the loss of recreation activities, the loss of the ability to enjoy our waterways, our beaches, and rivers, etc.? What is the cost for the energy and time that is lost to families or to work or in school for persons walking for great distances in order to collect water? These are some very important issues. I would love if we could figure this out as an entity and as a nation, and I look forward to that discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cunningham, for the presentation. You asked some very crucial questions. How can we need a value on those things? Value on the time, the value on the things that may be contributing towards the lack of water, or the things that we may not have thought about putting a value to before. And this is something we should consider, because everything everything has an impact, and everything has some value some way, and if we can find a way to put it that everyone can understand, then we'll be able to better comprehend and see how important these little things come together to make a huge impact. We will soon have our next presentation, which will be done by Mr. Kirk Williams, who is an agriculture instructor at the Ebony Park Hart NSTA Academy. And he will be speaking about water from the agricultural perspective, saying the management of water for agriculture and food security. I look forward to hearing this presentation from Mr. Kirk.
Good morning, all. Thank you very much for having us representing the agricultural sector in this World Water Day Forum. I will begin by saying, just imagine a landscaping focal point with rising, flowing water, a stream that flows along a gradient used for baptism on a Sunday morning, or a bird bath fountain on a sidewall in the backyard, a parish tank with reserved water in the countryside to clean and wash. Imagine Yellow Falls, rafting on the Red Grande, or the Martha Bray, you know, the pleasure of climbing Reach Falls or Maryville Falls, Little and Big Duns River, the wild sounds of animals after an afternoon shower, or even the ability to wash your car after a very, we call it a muddy afternoon on the road. These are some things that we take for granted right now, but for the agricultural perspective, we're going to look at valuing water for agriculture on this platform. The World Water Day theme comes to us in this format. Let's go up there. Good. And so here we look at nearly 97% of world's water is salty. You have heard it before mentioned. Or otherwise undrinkable. Another 2% is locked in ice caps and glaciers. We have heard that already. But guess how much remained for humanity's needs? All its agricultural, residential, manufacturing, community, and personal need. You would have answered that question correctly in your head. Just 1%. What we pour on the ground ends up in our water. That's why we need to value it. And what we spew into the sky ends up also in our waters. The average total home used in the US, we know now, is about 50 gallons, because they use a lot of water there. Our Jamaican context for rural parishes and some of our urban homes is approximately 5 gallons average. But then our report this morning from one of our colleagues shows about 12 gallons of water required to do your daily work or your workings within your home setting. As much as half of all the food produced in the world, equivalent to over 22 billion tons, ends up as waste every year. And from one of our UK statisticians, they are saying here, people are getting more clever, our consumers are getting more clever, where they want to have new produce, new product on the market. Some of them want to buy one, get one free. And the Western consumer demand for cosmetically perfect food. Now you can't go to the market and have a cabbage having a hole in it, or a tomato with any blemish, or people don't want that anymore. But this is also contributing to our waste in the world. Inadequate infrastructure and poor storage facility has also been one of the problems within our agriculture sector. But how much water do we need to produce the things we need? And of course, I know from our Facebook friends and those on Twitter and they're going to be asking, how comes we use so much water to produce? For those who are looking on this slide, just take, for example, one of those things there. Rice, for example, that we consume so much in the world. It takes over 2,497 liters of water to produce just 1 kg of rice. How do you get those figures? We know that water passes through plants and they grow at a very slow rate. It's not like you can just pump some chemicals into a plant and it comes just like that. It takes water to pass through the cells. For those of us in agriculture, hydroponics, I question some of our friends who are dealing with hydroponics nowadays. And for those who are going into hydroponics, will realize that it just needs about 300 mils of water per day for one lettuce plant to survive. Now, if you put that same lettuce plant in the open field, you might have to put over 3 liters, over 3,000 mils of water on that lettuce plants in the open field, which means that in agriculture, we have to now come up with innovative ways of improving on our hydroponic systems, on our drip irrigation systems, so we can conserve water for the population. Irrigated agriculture accounts for 20% of the total cultivated land so far in Jamaica, but contributes over 40% of the total food produced worldwide. When we say irrigated land, we mean taking water from a source and distributing that to where the plants are. Globally, groundwater provides around 50% of all drinking water, as was said before, and over 43% of all agricultural irrigation. By definition, we are not talking about rain-fed water here, or we call precipitation from the environment. We're talking about deliberately taking water from a source and distributing that to our crops. FAO estimates that irrigated land in developing countries will increase by 34% by 2030, but the amount of water used by agriculture will increase by only 14%. This is saying then that while agriculture is becoming more modernized and more technologically driven, we are at the forefront of saving water. And we are happy for that in the agricultural sector. On the screen, you have seen a simple method that farmers are now using to save water to our crops. Instead of having a hose or flooded lands with water pouring on crops daily, there is what we call drip irrigation system or micro irrigation system, which is very efficient with our farmers. And for those of us who have been in the industry so far, and the farmers in St. Elizabeth and those in the drier, arid areas of Jamaica, they have been benefiting from this technology for the last couple of years. And they have been saving. No longer some of our farmers in the belt are having a drum that holds about 45 gallons of water, and daily they are taking one of those water bottles and pouring 1 liter or half liter on this scallion on other cabbage. These things are outdated. They are going out of style according to Jamaican dialect. But then this is where we need to reach in our farming situation, where we improve on irrigation methods that are more efficient and more productive for our farmers. Then there is the runoff from our streams and our houses and our homes and the gullies, where the water can be stored in deliberate ponds that are designed. And for those of us who have been in the industry, I have been working with our greenhouse operators in Manchester and St. Elizabeth. And this is one of the technologies that has been used for our greenhouse clusters, where water reservoirs are created for these farmers. So anytime there's an excess in terms of rain water, these dams are created so water can be stored. The farmers naturally need a solar powered device to pump water to a higher ground, and then the water is now refed back into their irrigation system, and the plants can have quality water for optimum growth and development. Then, to conserve or to reserve our water, mulching is one of the practices that is practiced by some of our farmers. What do we mean by mulching? If you can prevent evaporation and reduce on evapotranspiration, you can conserve and reduce the amount of water being fed to plants daily. For those of us who allow the land to be left open, evaporation will increase. And so if the cover crop technology can be increased, where you plant your sweet potato, your pumpkin, and all of these plants that cover the land, you can conserve on water. If the land is not being used, the land can be covered with even plastic mulch. On the screen, you realize also where hydroponic systems now is one of the big systems that we are encouraging farmers to go into. You use less amount of water per day as against having a meter that is running water constantly, because in a hydroponic system, the water is being recycled and the nutrient is being monitored. The only issue we have with this technology is that most farmers do not understand the whole aspect of soil pH, the whole aspect of electroconductivity in the fertilizer that they use, and how plants do take up nutrients and how nutrients are recycled. So there's where the technology now has to be taught to the farmers ready-made. And so we are happy for industry personnel like AgroGrace and AdChem who have come up with formulations for our farmers. So there's no need now for a farmer to be going out there to mix and say 1 liter or 5 mils per liter, and all of these calculations that sometimes farmers are not so familiar with. The formulations are now made, and farmers now know that in a 10,000 gallon drum, this is the amount that is supposed to be placed there, and it makes life so much easier for our farmers. And then, in that case, we can be controlling our water resources. We can go to the next one. And of course, going into other aspects of conserving our water and valuing how we do our water, there's the grow bag technology that has been practiced in ginger production. Ginger in Jamaica, as one of our crops, is suffering from nematode damages. Little soil microscopic worms that eat on the root systems. If these ginger can be grown in bags like these, under mulch condition, on a high organic matter content, you don't need so much water to produce that amount of ginger. In the open field, they have to be watered, and the water has to be drained off so that the root system, or what we call the rhizome system, can have adequate amount of water at any given point. The technology is there in agriculture, and as such, we have heard our water commission gentlemen saying that it's just a monetary, the infrastructural development that's required. And so agriculture is moving. And from our Ebony Park perspective, we are highlighting our farmers on best practices. The agri-parks are doing very well in terms of how they conserve their water. And so the country is moving. It means that we now need more persons in the industry to move it a little forward. The issue at hand, and there are 3 that I've had discussion on, just very shortly. Agriculture places the biggest demand on global freshwater resources and is a major contributor to environmental degradation. That is what? True. It is true, because human settlements, industries, and agriculture are the 3 major sources of water pollution. And that's from one of our FAO 2017 Global Review. It also says from the same review that agriculture, which accounts for 70% of water obstructions worldwide, plays a major role in water pollution. And if this is also true, which is, we know it's also true, it means that we have something at hand here where pesticides intrusions are happening. If we can make and create systems and technologies and technological driven devices or implement some of these programs in water technology, we can reduce the amount of damage that we cause to our groundwater supply. Now, animals will live more at peace with us. And we can have water conserved for other things, like for our recreation and those things I mentioned before here. Where all of these resources, if we are not careful, nobody wants to go to a little Duns River because the water is polluted. Nobody wants to go in the ocean because the water is polluted, and it all comes from our industries. And agriculture plays its role in this whole scenario. Farmers are the center of any process of change involving natural resources and need to be encouraged and guided through appropriate incentives and governance to conserve natural ecosystems and their biodiversity and minimize the negative impact agriculture can have on the environment. Farmers have to be encouraged. There are those farmers who believe that when they are using their pesticide, they mean if it says 5 mils per liter and the pest is not going away, they think that increasing the rate or the mixing rate will eradicate these pests. And this is dangerous for the industry. And so when we teach our farmers about best practices and changing your chemicals so your pests do not get adapted to them, and they, the whole ecosystem can be different if we ask our farmers to follow established protocols and standards. Concerns related to our private sector and our government sector relates to water supply enhancement. Any system that can make farmers better. Anything that can make our water loss being reduced. Anything can make our crops more productive. Anything that can make and reallocate water and put it to where it is. We're happy for the agro parks in general, because in these parks, the government has gone in and put pumps in place and they have dug wells. The St. Thomas and Ebony Park is one of the prime examples where government intervention has caused productivity to increase. There's option for rainwater, we have heard it already. But the wider benefits of having quality water, definitely, is to improve nutrition, to generate income, to adapt to climate change, reducing migration or rural urban drift. If there is enough water where people are living, they don't need to go anywhere. And so this is one of the concerns from my Ebony Park perspective, and we can discuss that along the route, is that we bring awareness to our workers, to our students and staff on water conservation practices, reporting leaks, hand watering for potted plants and seeds instead of having an irrigation system running all day, drip irrigation throughout the day because it's much less water using, sprinkler irrigation for cover crops during early mornings and occasional late afternoons, mulch plants grown in open fields to conserve the water, use more compost and organic material as organic matter lowers soil temperature and increase what we call water holding capacity of our soils, and of course provide shade for plants and cattle. So instead of cutting down those trees, we thin them out so that the animals can have at least light can pass through, plants can grow, and animals and plants can live within an ecosystem. We will have more discussion on these as we go on, but for now, I'm going to be saying to you, we have so much work to do from an agricultural standpoint. We waste a lot of water, and from what we have heard before, it means it takes more energy, more effort from all of us as stakeholders to make water management better for agriculture. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. William. That was an excellent presentation. I admire the points made about technology, the use of virtual use of water, how much water it takes to produce something. And that's even more than just agriculture, it goes to many things. If you consider the motor vehicle you drive, consider how much water it took to actually produce that motor vehicle in the process. And everything that's around us takes water to produce, and that virtual water cost is something we need to consider when we are valuing water. Before we go to our next presenter, we're going to have those videos that were promised earlier, the Vox Populi, the voice in the street, of persons indicating what water means to them. And so that's the production team to roll those videos at this time.
Water, water is essential for every day life. So use water, keep yourself clean. Wash domestic purposes. Bathing, wash the chicken. Without water. Water is the stuff of life. I enter this section part for life. To me, water is life. That's why water is important. And water is life. You could not go around without water. You see? That is water.
So water means different things for different people, and for some people, myself included, water is a lot about relaxation and inspiration. When I'm around bodies of water, I tend to get some inspiration for different initiatives or to clear my mind about my life goals and my dreams. And I think for a number of people, water has different purposes, and for people in my family, some of them is about ensuring they drink enough water every day to maintain a good health and well-being. And for others, like some of my uncles and cousins who live in Mokwa and are farmers, it's a lot about how do they get the kind of water, enough water to irrigate their crops and to be able to provide for many families right across the parish.
we've seen some of the feedback from the man on the street, and we show that water is indeed a crucial topic for everyone. And they say without water, we can't do anything at all. Our next presenter is Miss Donna Blake. She is the Jamaica Program Director for the Nature Conservancy, and she will be presenting on the socio-cultural aspect of water. Miss Donna Blake.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Senator Aubin Hill, fellow panelists, distinguished participants and guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Donna Blake. I am, as you just heard, the Jamaica Program Director for the Nature Conservancy. The Nature Conservancy is a non-governmental conservation organization founded in the US, but now works in over 70 countries. We're tackling some of the toughest problems facing people and nature today with partners such as yourself here. And we try to replicate good ideas to restore many places and improve people's lives. We're grounded in local experiences, and we use science, real-world solutions, and partnerships to support local needs, and in some cases to guide and support regional and global decision-making. There you'll see our vision, a Caribbean where people and nature thrive, a resilient Caribbean. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So our Caribbean priorities are designed in collaboration, in dialogue with national governments and other stakeholders. We do them in partnership, as I said, with our other governments and partners so that we know what is relevant locally and we bring to bear our skills to the issues at hand. And today we're talking about valuing water, and you'll see one of our themes there is watershed management, which we roll under climate change. Next slide. We have a focus in Jamaica right now on protecting freshwater at source, using nature-based solutions, and strengthening our coastlines as part of our adapting to climate change. Watershed management is a strategy for biodiversity and ecosystem health, including water security. The Nature Conservancy actions most recently included training farmers in climate-smart agriculture, planting agroforestry, including fruit orchards, slope stabilization with pineapple barriers, and restoring degraded lands above the Hermitage Dam intake, all in the Upper Wagwater watershed. So I was very pleased to hear the colleague about just a while ago from Ebony talking about the value of farmers and really working with them to make some change, because we too recognize that as an important step. Next slide. So we're talking about value. So what does water mean to you? How do you value water? So you'll see from this image here, initially people want to think about, well, is recreation or, the aesthetic values, but the regard that we give something, the importance, the worth, or the usefulness is part of how we value it. Principles or standards of behavior, one's judgment of what is important in life. So these are all this aspect of valuing is much more internal and personal. So due to its fundamental role in society, water has a strong cultural dimension. Without understanding and considering the cultural aspects of our water problems, no sustainable solution can be found. Water is probably the only natural resource to touch all aspects of human civilization, from agriculture to industrial development to the cultural and religious values embedded in our society. The need and demand for water have been a driving force, for health, for society, for economic prosperity, for cultural significance and development throughout human history. Cultural differences play a key role in the way water is perceived, valued, and managed in different societies and within societies. Culture has positive and negative impacts, health impacts on individual well-being, in particular women's health. Earlier, a colleague was talking about the challenges of where, several persons have spoken about the distance you have to go to get water and who is getting this water. In a lot of our societies, right here in Jamaica particularly as well, it's the women getting the water or it's the young children. So there are costs and benefits of water being, in your tap, in your home and nearby, and there definitely should be some valuation and understanding of what those costs really are. So we certainly have evidence of national water values in Jamaica. We don't lack for national documents and governance arrangements. You'll see some listed here. The Jamaica Constitution speaks to the right that all of us have to a healthy natural environment. Vision 2030, Goal 4, and the 3 related national outcomes. Earlier, you were hearing about the National Water Sector Policy and Implementation Plan, the National Watershed Policy, Forest Policy, National Forest and Conservation Management Plan, and you'll see some relevant legislation that follows. Also mention was made of the National Integrated Water Resource Management Council, which is an inter-agency collaborative initiative really to better manage and look about our water resources in a collaborative way. So we definitely see evidence that we value water locally, and this is shown. Next slide. But valuing water certainly goes beyond what is written and observed formally. We're talking earlier about the culture, and so culture is a permanently evolving and distinctive set of spiritual, material, intellectual, and emotional features of society or a social group. It encompasses, in addition to art and literature, some of which you see here, lifestyles and ways of living together, traditions and beliefs. And the way water is used and valued constitutes an integral part of our society's cultural identity. I was listening to the Vox Pop and people were saying, yes, water is life. We believe this. And earlier on, I think it was Mr. Marshall who was saying, we talk a lot about water being life, and we refer a lot when it's absent is when we really are looking for where is this water. We take it for granted. The Tainos may have called Jamaica land of wood and water, and we have to question, are we still that? With what, given the resources that we see diminishing, people have seen rivers shrink and disappear in their lifetimes. What does that mean? How are we managing that? So at the top left there, you'll see an image of River Momo. So back in the day, River Momo was at the headwaters, and people were afraid of River Momo. She was both giver, she could save you, as well as she could drown you. So you had respect. We've lost a little bit of that tradition over time, but River Momo was real and live earlier in our traditional, folk tales earlier. And certainly there's a role for understanding of where we're coming from and how that has impacted how we relate to water today. There's, so not only Miss Lou, Lorna Goodison, there are several writers. I was surprised to see how many books there are about River Momo when I was researching for this. So, we have a history. And we have a relationship with rivers or fresh water locally. Some of it is positive and some negative. And of course, you see even there the flat bridge over the gorge, which is said to be where River Momo is housed. So we have a history. We have a relationship with our fresh water locally. Next slide, please. And so in the literature, there are lots of different social and cultural values, and you'll see them listed here. And most of these values are positive, but everyone does not see the same value in the resource. So for some people, they will see a wetland, for example, and that will say negative things to them. They will think it's smelly, or it's full of mosquitoes, or it has crocodiles, or it is in some way an unhealthy place. Even other people look at that and see something completely different. So here you'll see the list: educational, well-being, life-sustaining, safety, and intrinsic as social values. And cultural values, the aesthetic, cultural heritage and history, biodiversity, recreation, spiritual, and religious. Next slide, please. So when I look at Black River, and these are all images of Black River, I have a particular view, but what do you see when you look at these images? Is it aesthetically pleasing to you? Do you see value in river systems, in fresh water, wetlands as places where fish grow, crabs, birds, and other species inhabit? Coastal protection given to us by the healthy mangroves and stable riverbanks? What do you see? Next slide. So we talk about water is life, and here are some life-sustaining, we drink water, we need it for daily washing, keeping ourselves clean. And Minister earlier was talking about, in this time of COVID, access to potable water is even more critical than it was before. But, these are just some examples of life-sustaining uses that we make of water. Next slide. But here you'll see some other images of, I would say, what some people think of as well. So recreation is a big part Here in Jamaica, we are still blessed with many healthy rivers, and we make use of them in a variety of ways. And fishing is both a cultural practice as well as an economic activity. And I bring it up here, as, you know, so as I said, some people grow up, their grandfather was a fisherman, my father is a fisherman, my uncle, I'm going to be a fisherman. You know, so there are some, as I said, it's not just economic, it's actually cultural. A part of how you associate with a river and a place can be very much economic as well as part of your heritage and culture. And lastly, next slide, the spiritual and cultural values. There are places in Jamaica which are renowned for their ability to heal, cleanse, purify. How did we come to that association with that particular place? How did it get that value? So sometimes we don't even understand how we have all of the history that we have with the water resources, but these are real and part of how we associate and value water. So lastly, I want to say, you know, so what actions can we take to protect, conserve our sociocultural values? So I happen to have a great affinity for birds, and they're much easier to take pictures of than fish. So what is the value of these birds, though? You know, who values them? What value are they to us? Do we see any need to have them in our society? You know, they're a part of the ecosystem. They have a role. They have a function. And of course, to me, they look beautiful and fabulous. And it's great to have this ability to reflect on something other than yourself and your worldly problems, right? So, right. But some of the actions we can take, many of them have been said already by other presenters. I will just say that we have to continue public education and outreach at all levels. Farmers, yes, but with high water using private sector businesses, school-age children, general public consumers in general of water. I like the idea of also using artistic expression on water as an important means of fostering understanding and sharing information. Earlier on, Mr. Marshall was talking about poster competition for staff. I really think that engaging people creatively to think about water and how they use it and what they value about it is an important part of getting that message across. And I think it's fair to say we have some subcultures in our society in Jamaica. You know, water management practices have to be adapted to where people are, how they themselves understand water and use it. How are we reaching everyone on different levels? And of course, we have to be mindful of intergenerational differing values as well. I'm going to say, I'm not even sure what generation I am, but not to date myself. The youngsters have a different view of water. They see water as, you know, it's flowing out of a tap. They have not been in a situation where somebody near to you is going some miles to the river to get water. My father describes his life to me. He had a good chunk of his time dedicated to collecting water from quite a distance from the house, very much far in rural Hanover. So, you know, there are generational issues, and how we relate to water is, of course, part of how we ourselves are acculturized, but also how have we grown up? What is our association? How did we get to where we are? So certainly we have to continue watershed management, protecting areas from which the water flows, using land, especially at high elevations, with great care to reduce pollution, eliminate the harmful runoff, and reduce the loss of topsoil and crops and associated livelihoods. And downstream, of course, would be much healthier if we properly manage the upstream lands. And so the various values that we recognize will be sustained for our use and for generations to come. And of course, finally, those existing policies and laws, programs and plans, we need really to enforce those and to implement those actions. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Ms. Blake. I wanted to just point out two aspects. One cultural aspect that we can consider too are the mineral springs. You know, that we have. There are more than just bath and milk river bath. So there are others that we can consider. Culturally, it's very good spiritual and health benefits. And it is important for us to remember that water doesn't come from a pipe. You know, it's very important for us to remember that water comes from way beyond the pipe, and we can, once you understand that, I think our people will be able to value it a lot more.
Yes.
I'm inviting everyone to remember, if you have questions for the panelists, you can type them in the chat on Zoom. If you're in Zoom, you can type them in the chat there, and we'll be able to present them, because we'll have those questions presented in a few minutes after our final presenter. If you're on social media, you can so what we will address them at that time. Before our last presenter, we'll also have the final box pop voice on the man on the street regarding water, and we'll invite that video to play right now before I introduce our final presenter.
So hydration. Clean out the place. I use water for domestic purpose. I will use water for everything. You use water. Yes. Wash. So we use it for a lot of things, hydration, and as well as hygiene purposes, and cleaning the place, basically for me, yeah. I am a housewife, so I use water for domestic purpose to cook, wash, clean. I will use water for everything. We use water for like domestic purposes, like drinking, cleaning, bathing, washing. You use water to bathe, you use water to cook, you use water to wash, water plants. And water is very important. It is the breath of, it is next to life. It's very important because I consider it as basically an essential need to life. Without it, you can't, it basically can't do. You see, the human body consume water, If somebody don't feel like you want water to drink, but at the same time, your body need the water to keep the other parts of your body functioning. You understand me?
Of or they updated their goals. Next slide, please. Goal 6 speaks about water efficiency. I'd like us to look at the diagram. There are some targets based on Goal 6. And water and sanitation to the pathway to a sustainable future. As I said, this is pertaining to Goal 6 of the United Nations Sustainable Development Plan. And Goal 6 speaks to ensuring availability and sustainable management of water sanitation for all. On 6.4, we look at water efficiency. By 2030, they want to substantially increase water use efficiency across all sectors to ensure sustainable withdrawals and supply of fresh water across to address water scarcity and substantially reduce the number of people suffering from water scarcity. That Miss Donna spoke about the River Muma, and somebody spoke about listening to the sound of Dunn's River and all of that. And you see, most of this talk is on leisure, but there's, I mean, water truly is part of our daily life. Next slide, please. When we're going to look at, as we said before, water is essential to life or food.
It spoke about agriculture, energy, transportation, nature, leisure, identity, social norms, products used on a daily basis. And we have to remember that water is a renewable only if it is managed, right? So let us look at the key consumers of water. So we have agriculture, we have industry. We spoke all about this morning, right? Agriculture, industry. Go back, please. Agriculture, industry, domestic, cities, ecosystem. And the thirstiest of all the consumers, as you formally mentioned, is the agricultural sector. You are correct, right? What does it mean, though, for all of us to play a part? Because all of us here on social media who are watching this morning can identify and place yourself in one of these categories. It's either in agriculture, in the industry, or you're domestic, or you're part of the city, or you have an ecosystem. We are all connected. So the key really is that this is a call to action for every Jamaican to start conserving water. How are we going to do this? So people say, how can I be part of this sustainable goal 6? It sounds like it's a very difficult thing. No, it's not difficult. We are encouraging you to conserve. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the Jamaican role. Thank you, the Jamaican role. So what is it that we have to do? There's 3 things that I've identified. First thing we have to do, we have to change the water use habits. The next thing we have to do, we have to integrate efficiency in the total building designs, and our building design should be sustainable designs. And those buildings that are already built must be retrofitted with water efficient technologies. Next slide, please. So the Water Project Jamaica, my company, is an initiative of the Jamaica National Foundation. It was designed specifically to address the country's water management issues related to climate change. The project aims to enhance Jamaica's climate resilience through the use of water conservation technology in this country's housing sector, specifically to goal 6.4. All right, so let us go to the household. How is it that a Jamaican can be efficient in their household? Let's get to it. All right, so we decided, okay, we are going to guide, because this is a holding of hands, right? We want everybody to be able to conserve, so we're holding the hands. So, okay, we designed a homeowner's guide for water use efficiency. This homeowner's guide, what it really does, it speaks to what does a climate resilient house look like? What should be in the house, right? It speaks about what are the different types of technologies that are available out there. And who are these suppliers? So if I want to change out, or let's say I'm going to identify a technology that I'm going to be installing into my home, who is the person that is selling this item? And then we went a little bit further, and all this information, guys, is available at waterprojectja.com. We created a water saving calculator, right? So if Mr. Cunningham said, you know what, my water bill is too high, even though I work at NWC, I am going to change, let us say, okay, I'm going to install a water efficient toilet. So when you click on that toilet on the website, what it does, it tells you the amount of liters that you are going to be saving and how soon you'll be able, after all of those savings in terms of liters, how soon you'll be able to get back that money that you spent. So that is what the water saving can, if you want it. And there, of course, there are the technologies there. There's the kitchen faucets, the aerators for the bath, the shower head, the washing machine, the faucet for the kitchen, as well as the bathroom. And then there's a dishwasher. Jamaicans are not really typically, we don't use dishwasher, right? It's where the hand washers, right? But it's there, just in case that you're that person who would like to install that device there. It tells you the rate of the ROI, right? Next slide, please. So we are here banging the drum and saying, you know, you guys, you need to, we are encouraging you to go in and you change out these faucets in your homes. And then we say, okay, we have to put our money where our mouth is, right? All right. So what we did, we selected 9 homes. We went in and we installed all of these devices except the dishwasher that you see there in these homes. 9 homes in Kingston area. And guess what, guys? Right in the 3 months after the installation, there was a 30% reduction right away. 7 months, it was still 30% right across the board. But guess what? Anybody can guess how many liters we saved in 9 households in 7 months? 2.5 million liters. 9 homes in Kingston. 2.5 million. What is 2.5? But what is 2.5 million liters? This is the size of a state, the swimming pools in the Olympic Stadium, that big. That's how much water we save. And so we decided, okay, if the people don't build house, sometimes you build a house by yourself, but you don't want to build it by yourself, so you get a contractor, correct? So we created a water adaptation guideline. This is what will guide the developers in terms of if they're going to install those rainwater harvesting system or a grey water recycling systems or those toilets that they're going to be installing when they're building their place. So that is what the water adaptation guideline is. Speaks about the different components and parts, for example, of a rainwater harvesting system, and generally how much it going to cost. Because developers only care, am I going to get back my money? Yes. Next slide, please. So we know that in order for us to be sustainable, to be sustainable, we have to create a repetitive source of income. And when you talk about income now, people are going to be encouraged because they say this is an industry I can go in, I can make some money. There's a problem, climate change is a problem, there's a business to the problem. Okay, let's get into the business. All right, so we hosted a climate innovation challenge. We did a call out to all the green entrepreneurs in Jamaica. Fantastic. Jamaica, there's hope. There's a lot of applicants who had some very innovative idea. We had a very difficult time to choose the 9 applicants, the 8 applicants to the challenge. As you see there's a winner. The winner, he has a system that measures the amount of water in your tank, tell you when it's going to finish. If there's a leak, it automatically shut it off. The detection system and all that. The second place winner, Miss Tracy there, she has a system, an app that can predict if let's say we have a natural disaster, where it's going to be, how much it's going to cost for us in terms of infrastructure. And Mr. Third Prize winner there, he was sick and tired of some seaweeds on the shore, so he decided to do some goat feed out of it. So he's a third prize winner. So they saw problems, they created solutions, and they're going to market very soon. Next slide, please. We're also coming up, so there's a plug here. We are going to have our summit in May 13 and 14, 2021. We're going to be, coming full circle in terms of inviting all the key stakeholders to have those serious conversations in terms of legislation, in terms of cost, in terms of infrastructure, and all of that on me. Go next slide, please. All right, so if you're going to install these things, they need to be educated, right? You have to have little education. You have to have little skills and the papers, them call it in Jamaica, right? So we decided, look here, we're not going to only do it ourselves, we are going to create courses. So next slide, please. It's full circle. So in December 2019, our course culminated and we had 15 graduates from the rainwater harvesting and grey water recycling course. And next slide, please. We decided for the sustainability of the entire program, even though our project comes to an end in May, we just recently signed a memorandum of understanding with the University of Technology, and they're going to be offering this course to the general public next month in rainwater harvesting and grey water recycling, and you're going to be able to be certified. Yes. Next slide. And this project would not be possible if it weren't for our gracious sponsor, Jamaica National Bank, the Climate Investment Funds, pilot program for the climate resilience, Inter-American Development Bank, and IDB Lab. My final, in conclusion, guys, we have to be cognizant that we are responsible for the earth that we give to our children. I remember one Saturday my girls were hot and we decided we were going to go to country, my fake country, St. Mary. bang around, put the things in the car and the lotion and the children and scurried along and went to my favorite spot. And all I saw was sand. And I had to explain to my 5-year-old why there's no water. So it is real, guys. It is real. Climate change is happening and it is affecting us adversely. You heard about the cost, you heard about infrastructure, you heard about all the things that we presented here today. And really the onus is on you to help us to conserve. So all of us can benefit in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Mrs. Walker, for that excellent presentation. It opened our eyes indeed to the importance of saving water, so that water can be saved. I was really surprised to imagine that at Olympic site swimming pool worth of water was saved in 9 houses just by using devices. And more than just the water that's being saved, imagine the reduction in the water bill that comes from that. So I know I'll be visiting that website to see how I can outfit my next resident, so to speak, with those devices. And I'm sure that even our listeners online are also considering, how that leaky pipe I have, that leaky pipe is not just wasting water, but it's also increasing my water bill. So what we can do is indeed consider all these things: rainwater harvesting, reuse of grey water for backyard irrigation. If you have backyard gardens, so ones that was suggested, or you can have even vertical gardens or rooftop gardens. They have in Cuba where rooftops, there's vegetables that they're growing culture there. You can have urban agriculture. That's many options that can be done to really use water and have increased productivity and indeed have the value of water in saving these costs. So we are now ready for our question and answer segment, and we have a few questions. This is regarding a presentation. It's not yet the panel discussion, it's the question and answer for the presentations. So our first question will go to NWC, and with some feedback from Water Resources Authority as well. The question from Zoom was asked: our population continues to grow, but our capacity for storing and distributing water reservoirs has not changed in well over 50 years. Have there been any discussions around addressing this particular issue?
There have been discussions, but I don't recall from my comment about what in our Thank you for that question. Yes, there have been discussions and investigations about increasing our storage capacity. But I don't know if you recall what I mentioned about NRW, which is non-revenue. We currently experience losses of anywhere from 6 to 7 times. Through, as I said before, commercial losses, which is non-clinical, general, and physical losses, which is water that leaks through pipes and doesn't get to the end. So, I see the example, you produce 100 meter cubes of water, 30% is collect revenue. We found that if we extend our efforts in reducing NRW, we would be far better off than trying to find areas to invest in reservoirs with billions of dollars. So our efforts are being in that area. We currently have 2 projects in the KBA area, in Kingston and Second Conway. And we're looking to start, hopefully next year, project in North St. James, Illinois, and St. Anne.
Thank you. Mr. Chambers, any comments on the availability of water that may be required? And the availability of water for these resources. In terms of the reduced. Could you repeat the whole question? I'm a bit distracted. The question was that the capacity for storing and distributing water has not changed over 20 years, 50 years. And so considering that NWC is focused on reducing non-revenue water, but upfront may there be, in addition to that, for additional water resources to be added for these years?
there is there, in addition to reducing non-revenue water, we can seek to add other sources to the system, sources that is not being fully exploited. Because as we speak, there are millions of cubic meters, hundreds of millions of gallons of water that can be exploited. But the problem is that it might be a bit costly. So ways has to be found to fund additional sources. For example, we have almost 600 million gallons of water per day in dry harbor mouth. Quite a bit of that is excess water that we can see, find ways to harness to address this. And there are other areas where we can look at where we have quite a bit of water too. But as I said, it's a factor of cost. And maybe we need to do a cost benefit analysis to see how best to access these resources and how it can be funded. That's an important factor.
Thank you very much. The next question that was asked from Zoom was saying, if the government has no money in its coffers, can private or public partnership be established to increase our capacity? I would ask Mrs. Waters-Jones as a economic representative to give us a comment on it. I think obviously also a comment.
With private partnership?
Public-private
PPP? I don't know of a country who has ever handed over a water resource to be, I've not seen that. So I don't think they would welcome a competition. Now, NWC, would you welcome a competition?
It doesn't have to be a competition. So public-private partnerships are an actual avenue that we are exploring.
Okay.
Developing a number of projects, including animal supply. We're covered that perhaps will proceed as you see, we have a middleman, you can buy 1% distribute.
Right.
So it is indeed an avenue that is being explored, though it takes quite a bit of time to ensure that the people of Jamaica are benefiting from such an arrangement, and that there is a fair contract between the private sector and ourselves. But it's very much being important.
So as it is now, there is none. Okay.
This way, perhaps it would give some contribution in terms of the water fund, which might be an issue that would be used to help address the situation.
Certainly. Turn it on. So the idea is with a water fund. A water fund is really just governance and financial mechanism to put money into watershed management. So we spoke earlier about the need to work with farmers and so on, and how do you incentivize the farmers to adapt the right practices? Some of them are have a small livelihood that they make. So if you require them to do something above and beyond what they would normally have done, like use pineapples on contours, or really channel the water across their around the land rather than up and down, it's a lot of extra work that they have to do. And so we hope through the creation of a water fund, and this is one of those, it will be a public-private partnership, or that's the ideal, that's the hope, that's the pattern we're following from global examples, that there will be a source of revenue to incentivize, assist farmers and other people working in the upper watershed areas where we need the good practices to take place. Here is some assistance for you to put these things in place to sustain you while you get the benefits. The benefits will come, but they're not going to be instant, and there are some additional costs. So that's the idea of the water fund, to put some money in watershed management to assist the people who need to do the work. For us downstream users who want to turn on the tap, right, and have access to that water. So it's a process.
Thank you. You touched on a point in terms of like upstream users and convincing farmers. I'd like to ask Mr. Williams, as agricultural representative, what challenges have there been in getting farmers to buy into the use of technology and the society overall, see how technology can be improved and using agriculture for both water saving and also water protection measures?
It's not working. About a mic.
The challenges that farmers face nowadays, you know, in agriculture, water is available. I am looking at it from the value of water in terms of what farmers can afford. Water is cheap. You would not want to use that word so loosely. No, it's cheap in terms of the volume of water, how much is paid for it. In agriculture, I look at what NIC, National Irrigation Commission, charge for a cubic of water. It is about 2 drums of water. It's $47. That's for agriculture. I don't know how much you're paying for the NWC lines. But for farmers, if farmers know the value of the water in terms of what it is that causes that and subsidize, as you're saying here, it will be no problem. Because here's an institution like what you mentioned here, where there's private sector who comes in and put in the infrastructure for the farmers. The farmers know that this is there existing, like NIC plants where there's solar pumps that are being designed, that's heavy money invested into these systems. Now when the water is released to the farmers, they pay the rate at which they get it, which is very cheap. Our issue though sometimes is those individuals who lift the water, who take it through the drums and the transport system, where they charge farmers and households a lot of money.
Yeah.
You're talking about like 1,000 gallon for a drum that they actually buy for $47 per cubic. And this is where the government is coming in and try to say to these relief individuals or the transporters, it doesn't have to be that way. Water is still cheap. So there has to be an intervention so that all of us can benefit from water as a natural resource.
Okay, thank you much. A question has been asked in the chat about desalination, which wasn't mentioned in the presentations. I'd like to ask both Douglas and NWC to comment on the use of desalination at this time.
From Douglas' perspective, you know the issue is desal. You know the expense involved in operating a desalination plant. So for a country that, to an extent, has abundant water resources to go desal, we might think about management of what's available. Because it's not as if there isn't water. It is a matter of the distribution, the occurrence, and the geographic location of where the water is and where it is needed. So I think instead of even thinking about these, we should think of ways, economic ways, we can get water from where it is abundant, is plentiful to where it is needed. Because adding these is the next level of expense that I don't know if we can afford. And I don't think we really need to go there based on what the data is showing us.
Any comment on this?
I would agree in general. As you said, it's quite expensive to explore desalination, primarily because of the costs for electricity. The energy costs are really astronomical. So that doesn't mean it cannot be explored. In fact, we are looking into it. Technology changes all the time. Perhaps one day some entity will come with a technology that makes it more feasible.
That's true.
But I agree wholeheartedly. The issue for us is where water is, where it is needed, and then the cost of it is needed.
I have a question I want to point out as we talk about energy costs. Because you mentioned that almost 1/3 of the NWC cost is electricity. And I know that currently, if you look at the energy usage of JPS, the largest customer is NWC and the second largest is NIC. So this energy nexus between water use and energy usage, how can that cost, what options are you looking at or are available right now to help reduce that energy nexus and to reduce the cost of energy due to water usage, and how can we reduce that expense in water production if at all possible?
We have a whole unit that is focused on trying to reduce our energy costs. The options are limited. Of course, there are renewables as an option. There's an international movement towards renewables. I don't want to speak out of turn, but renewables is quite expensive as well. There are very few countries in the world that it's not subsidized by the central government when you expand renewables. There are other options like trying to find more energy efficient variable speed pumps as opposed to a single speed pump, for example. Options like that are being explored, and we have various pilots throughout the island investigating this use and monitoring this.
Thank you. If I may. We know that energy is the single greatest cost for the Commission. Now, one of the issues that we face as a nation, and it's not unique to Jamaica, is how people see water that impact their willingness to pay. People see water as free, but what we need to NWC, WRE, need to do is engage people, to educate them, to say, listen, it is not the water you're paying for, it is the processes involved to get the water to you in a condition that you get. It's clean, you can drink it straight from the pipe. It is the energy involved, it is the chemicals involved. Until we get people to understand these things, maybe you're going to need to engage them on a regular basis, remind people, might need to take drastic actions, but people's engagement, until people get to understand that it's paying for the processes, not the water, then maybe we might start to see a change in mindset.
And may I say, Mr. Moderator, that if people were actually paying for water, so as it is, NWC is capturing the water.
Exactly.
No one is producing it. So that cost for watershed management we're talking about, which is assisting in the production of water over the long term, that is not captured in the price of water.
No.
Maybe it ought to be. And one of the things where you're talking about educating people, they don't know where the water comes from. They have no idea which watershed, it's like it's all comes out the tap. Yeah. And it seems very simple to them, but it's not. And I think that's part of the process of educating where it comes from, what exactly are the costs. And I think if people understood how much energy was required to get the water into your house, they would know how cheap water really is.
That's right. Yeah. Aspect of following watershed.
Absolutely. And that's not factored at all in the cost of getting the water into our hands and our businesses.
That's right. The access, of course, you pay for the access to water.
Exactly, more than the water itself.
Correct.
The policy itself speaks to that. The national water policy, making sure that access to water is available for all, that access takes a lot of effort. So protecting the watershed, so that with the water that falls where the trees were, normally the trees would intercept the water and they go to the river. But if the trees are not there, it runs right off the sea. So every little bit matters, so to speak. Every part is interconnected that way. There's a comment for Mrs. Walters Jones from Vernon Barrett coming from Zoom, reminding you to please put your questions in the Zoom chat so that they can be updated here and we can answer them on the presentations. So he says, I quote, for the saving of 2.5 million liters for 9 homes over 9 months.
7 months.
Well, 7 months, we suggest an average water use of just over 100,000 liters per home per month prior to the competition methods. But the typical home uses about 25,000 liters per month. The homes seem to be atypical. Could you give us some more detail on this pilot project that was done?
Sure. So in the homes, there are some homes that there are more than one devices or technologies that were installed. For example, before there were no water tanks there. Tap water tanks were installed. Rainwater harvesting systems were also installed. Showers, all the technologies that I mentioned before, the shower head, those were installed. Again, the average household, some had 5 people, some had 6, some had 10. Remember that the types of house were from 3 different levels of the society, middle class, upper income, and so upper might have a different usage altogether, because lawn is being watered, right? While the person down in Nannyville don't have any lawn, so it is just the bare use of washing machines and so on and so forth. So yeah, so that's my answer to it. The study in itself will become available on the website by the end of March. So they can go in and to details and see the different houses and all the technologies that we installed.
Thank you very much. The question was that, so does one obtain those NWC master plans that were spoken about?
The master plans for Falmouth and Norfolk is in Royal. They are currently still in draft. So in terms of the public availability, they will have been published before.
That would be announced.
No matter.
Okay, thank you very much for that. The question is asked as well. Can anyone speak on water use efficiency mechanisms in development designs and construction being in our bylaws in the near future? In other words, rather than making it a nice to have, you're going to incorporate it into the
legislation.
Can anyone speak that?
I think there are talks. There's a national adaptation plan that is currently being tabled, approved. But indeed, they're correct. Unless it becomes law, for example, and from local law, you cannot construct unless these devices are included in your design and it won't be passed. So it needs to get there. But as it is now, there's room for, there's opportunity there. Opportunity for growth.
So we encourage our planning.
Okay.
Consider this very important aspect.
Okay, all right, yeah.
Reducing non-revenue water will reduce the need for new bulk sources of water, but will it solve the storage challenge during droughts? Even if we have enough total water in a 1 year, will it increase interseasonal storage?
I don't want to say no, but as I said, if you can imagine, if there is, let's say, an average of 70% water that is not currently, let's say 50%, to be conservative. If that much water is being lost to the ground, if I save even half of that, that's less abstraction from our resources. That's less abstraction from our forage reservoirs. It's less energy cost to lift that water from. It is a matter of feasibility. So it's not being ignored. It's just not the most efficient mechanism.
For the farming community, though, this has to be the way forward. And as I mentioned before, with the greenhouse operators, they deliberately have to store water and then gravity feed that to the plants. From my institution, I have done a little research and I realized that we are running about 25% of our operations into water, which means that it's running up to $1 million per year. If we should store some of those water and have it stored and then it will gradually gravity feed the plants, there is where we can save on water. When pumps are running on a cycle, you mentioned having really pumps or the centrifugal ones running on cycle where they can be cut off at a certain point within a day, you will save energy, which is very high. The energy bill for water is running almost 30% also. That's very high. And all of these factors taking into consideration the volume of water wasted, the amount of energy pumping water that is not being used, there is where we can save a lot for our farmers and for our institutions.
That's very correct.
Well, just one point, I don't want to be misunderstood. When I'm trying to compare conservation of water, using another to storage, I'm not referring to tanks within tanks all the time. I was talking more of something of the size of a
Hermitage.
Oh, a dam. A dam.
That's right.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
So the next question coming from Zoom. Does international entities, I guess you consider spiritual conservancy, provide funding for education, water conservation, and behavioral change across Jamaica? What initiatives do you have if you don't provide funding?
So part of what we do is raise money to do exactly that. We have had water conservation programs. In fact, we had a brilliant PR firm, and we have a whole plan we'd love to roll out. Due to COVID, we've had some challenges bringing in the financials that we normally would have. Although we have plans and ready to go videos and materials, we don't actually have the financial resources right now to roll it out. So we would love to partner with others who do have, and we continue to seek funding to do the public educational outreach, which we recognize is a critical component of having conservation success.
And I know that the Douglas have done a project WET a few years ago that was looking at projects in schools to educate about water education and training. And so hopefully we can receive funding for that kind of thing. But education will be crucial to have the value of water increased.
And that's one of the principles of the 5 principles of the value of water initiative. Educating stakeholders, population, and the value of water use.
All right, we're going to switch from the questions to the panel discussion. And this last question actually seems into the panel discussion because this question asked here is the first question on the panel discussion sheets. And it goes to the WRA. It says in the WRA webinar a few months ago, it was mentioned at the WRA that the government was running a pilot for managed aquifer recharge. You mentioned that in the project as well. How is that going? And are there plans for taking that further as they would improve aquifer storage without needing to construct artificial reservoirs?
Yes, there is a program for artificial recharge, MARS, in the St. Catherine area, where excess water, and this is very important now, because we know that the water there is mainly used for irrigation. So it is an excess amount that is treated from the Rayapova River,
the NIC canal.
NIC irrigation canal.
Yes.
That is treated and returned to the aquifer. So that is an ongoing project, and it will be ongoing because it is up and running. It has been. There is some results. I can't speak definitively until we look at the numbers, but it is an ongoing project that we have endeavored. Now, to roll it out elsewhere, that can be a conversation for another time. There's no plans at this time for that. But based on the result from this project, maybe other areas can be looked at.
That's quite correct. I know that there were views looking at 17 paranoid and also discussion for the back report and Huntsville, but hopefully we see those. Yes. This is indeed that option with a viable future housing wealth. Okay, Ebony Park, Mr. Williams. The question is asked here: what role can water play in helping reduce poverty and achieve food and nutritional security?
That's what we were saying from morning. If we have better quality water, it means a healthier society. I mentioned in the presentation about our urban drift, where individuals are not surviving based on where their surroundings are. They are going to leave for the cities, and then the overrun on the cities will now impact on the quality of the water. Water, if it's available to farmers, and we have seen it across, and I don't have a stats on my notes here. I can say how much poverty has been alleviated due to farmers having better water. But you can see it in the countrysides. The quality of the homes sometimes that you see in the countryside, a reflection of what farmers are benefiting from. That these homes are not just built based on nothing. It has to be something based on how they are maintained. When you look at the farms and the trucks that leave from these countrysides coming into Kingston on a weekly basis, you can see that there is productivity happening. You'd have seen the crop still farmers coming down with the lettuce and their vegetables, the St. Elizabeth ones with the, all the scallion. And nowadays, the greenhouse technology is spreading across Jamaica. Recently, we certified a number of farmers down in St. Elizabeth. And when you would have gone into these greenhouses and see the production that's happening, you're saying, if this is happening with one farmer, can you imagine if 20% more farmers can benefit from having greenhouse technology? It means better life. And then you have individuals, we have known farmers who have removed themselves from their normal 8 to 5 jobs and go straight into farming. Why would they do that if there was not something that they would have seen in these greenhouses where indeterminate varieties of plants are now being produced in greenhouses as opposed to open field? The plants are staying in their greenhouses a little longer. If I should tell you that there are farmers who are harvesting sweet pepper for 3 months in a house, you're saying, how is that possible? Or tomatoes growing for 9 months. Those are things that most individuals don't know. But in a greenhouse setting where these farmers exist, production is happening and poverty is changing. Things are changing because of this.
Okay. So what encouragement or what suggestions would you give to those above to facilitate more of this happening? That people can be more educated and to facilitate the ease of going into greenhouse farming as well.
It's awareness when it comes to education. It comes back to our entities, our stakeholders, rather, and those who are involved in agriculture to put it out there to the farmers. No longer it's a country thing to grow crops. It's growing in the cities now. It's on the rooftop. Somebody mentioned it before, in small spaces, in containers. So farming is not a country lifestyle anymore. Actually, there are farmers who have removed themselves from the soil and using soilless media, the pro-mix media through the magnum peat moss and hydroponic systems that can be harvested. I mean, we are growing crops now on concrete. That's all.
Right.
I think that's happening now.
Right.
So it's not a country lifestyle to be producing. So it's about awareness, research, train. We do certification from Harvest in general, but then it's just general education that's lacking.
And so everybody can be a farmer.
Everybody can be a farmer.
That's excellent. All right, next question. Going to NWC. This came from a person from online. Why is it that for parishes such as Portland and St. Thomas and others, with so much freshwater supplies, so many communities are unable to have reliable sources of potable water? Is it that the NWC's focus is on supplying water to the urban centers?
No, I wouldn't say that. It is NWC supports the GOG in its efforts and its role of universities. The specifics of St. Thomas and Portland, as far they are complaining that they're suffering from.
Well, they're saying there are water resources available there, but yet people are not, services don't seem to be there.
I don't know this is say we are constantly seeking to improve our service. We're constantly seeking to expand our service where it is economically feasible to do so. I'm not sure what community specifically we're speaking to. I would have
Get some more details. Okay. The one thing I would say, a lot of times for Portland has a lot of water, in terms of rainfall and springs. So the distribution aspect of it, sometimes I've seen in my work as a professional, you've seen where there may be water and spring that's in tube and water is flowing, but then for some reason the water that is flowing in the tube and tube spring doesn't get to the community itself, So it could be an infrastructure problem at times. It could be a situation where where the water isn't distributed properly, I don't know, in that sense. But I think there could be an audit to see where the certain resources are and whereby the sources may not be supplying the person. So it may not be a source problem, a distribution problem. All right, for this waters, the question is asked here, how can water and sustainable development be better integrated into the national development agendas? From a developer perspective.
From a developer perspective. As I mentioned earlier, from a developer's perspective,
I think they just want to clean the mic.
Development perspective. But I think it's, as I mentioned, there are so many areas that has to do with water, and each area there has to be a specific plan for each area. As we mentioned earlier, when we look at the household, and let's just focus on the household. If we're able to better manage the water that we are currently consuming, it means that I'm trying to put my thoughts together. I'm sorry. It means if we're able to manage it, it will be equally distributed. Yes. The government, for example, the NWC, when there's more capacity, means that more. If for example, in St. Elizabeth, where there's an issue with water, we know that there's an issue there. If more water is available to them, it means more farming can as Mr. As he has mentioned, and if more farming is there, more economic development. If there's more economic development, people are going to build houses. And if you build houses, it is a cycle. It's a never-ending cycle. It is just a never-ending. Every era you can think of, whether it is industry, whether it is person, domestic, ecosystem, all of it, if it is managed properly, or if there's, for example, when you look at the budget, in 2018, it was 1.7% of GDP that was dedicated to the WASH program, water and sanitation program. More needs to be done, more emphasis. If you look at the government's indicators, more is looked at water, sanitation, and yet hygiene. So it is just, as I said before, it's a never-ending circle. If proper investments are done, if laws, legislations are created, everybody works together. Means if you break the law, if you build a house and it doesn't have those devices, it can't be passed. Means that if there's going to be a need for these devices, who's going to sell these devices? Businesses are going. So as I said before, it's a never-ending cycle.
Okay, that's very true, very true.
Yes.
This Blake, the question. The question was asked, can social changes, such as the improvement of lifestyle and rise in living standards, influence people's perception and attitudes towards water? If yes, how so?
Can you repeat the first part, please?
Can social changes, such as the improvement of lifestyle and the rise in living standards, can that influence people's perception and their attitude towards water?
So long as we're educating them. So, I could follow on what Mrs. Walters was just talking about. So yes, it can. But we need to, there's a saying by, people understand what they're taught. Oh, there's a lovely saying, which I'm not remembering right now, but we have to educate people. It's through that understanding and awareness of what is the value of water. Why should I change my practices? Is there anything wrong with my practices right now? How can they be modified? How is it going to be simple and easy for me to do? What is am I going to make a difference? So people actually want to know that they don't want to just recycle, a little bit of water thinking it makes no difference. I have the understanding, yes, every drop counts. It really does. You know, so yes, once we educate people and awareness and people's behaviors and practices change, we can make an impact.
And I would also add, you know, once I was having a conversation with a person, you know, there's a person who lives in a complex, right? And she says, I recycle water. And when the government said no water lawn, I'm not watering my lawn, but I see my neighbor watering her lawn. So I just go water my lawn. So again, you are indeed correct. The onus is on everyone.
Some technical difficulties.
While they're doing that though, the reliability of the surface water, there are two kinds of water we have in Jamaica. We have the subsurface, the underground we call it, and the surface water. I want to relate to a Portland situation that was mentioned not too long. In Portland Parish, you'd have rain, certain months of the year, excess rain. So a lot of surface water is there, and you might pass through the junction, and you know, you see water coming out of the rocks. And during the dry periods, you see none of this. Now, farmers would have tapped into that surface water during that time.
Yes.
But as soon as the rain, the period ends, that water. So here's what the question probably they were trying to say to, or what commission to folks. And can we now tap more in the subsurface, in the underground, for these folks who rely so much on the surface water, but at some time during their period, there's no water available because they depend so much on surface water, and here is not available. But then there is subsurface there. So how can we improve on that aspect where farmers still can benefit even in the dry period?
I think that's a question for water.
Mm-hmm.
Tapping into the subsurface water is vastly different from accessing surface.
Right.
The first thing you have to know is that find out if water is there. Then it's a matter of now knowing that the water is there and begin the process, access that water, which I need to add exercise. It is cheaper to harness surface water than groundwater, if you're talking about that, because there are several factors involved in harnessing groundwater. Search, drilling, then development, and then the conveyance. So from a WRA perspective, is first assessing the availability, how much can be allocated, can it meet the need of the demand, and then we make our determination. So it's not just a run up the river thing. It is far deeper than that.
In addition to that, you also have to keep in mind that where the aquifers are, in terms of the rocks that provide water versus aquifers, the rocks that don't provide water. You mentioned Portland. So in Portland, most of, if you look at the Blue Mountain area, most of those are aquifers, where you won't be able to really drill a well there in the current situation and get the water. There's a lot more rivers there. In places where you have some of the limestone, like in area, NWC has wells there, but those wells are unfortunately they've been saline because of where they are. So groundwater is more resilient to climate change, as resilient to different things, but it's a lot harder to access as soon as you know where it is. You know? In addition to that, drilling a well, as NWC can tell you, is not a trivial endeavor. And while technology is available and while we do our best to cycle properly, many times, not many times, but on occasion, you drill a well and find out what you were hoping for is not quite there. And the business has a problem.
Just one more comment, and it is not in any way rude, but it is part of this whole theme that we're talking about, everybody having their part to play and work for society. It's expensive to do the types of works that are required to do. Yes. Everybody pays their bill. Then we have more money to
yes.
to produce more water and recycle.
What is the percentage? You mentioned earlier the percentage of theft.
So I can't speak to the overall.
Are we call it? There's another word for it.
Overall.
Non-revenue, right?
Commercial losses.
Yes.
As well as physical losses. It can be anywhere up to.
Sorry?
70.
70.
So imagine a business where you are collecting 30%
Percent of your, so Jamaica, please pay your water bill.
Yeah, this is not a beat up on PBCJ. So
No.
Dr. Ray, the question that coming up from that. What can we spoke about groundwater, we spoke about groundwater. What can we do to reduce contamination of groundwater sources? How can we protect groundwater?
Several ways, and I'll speak to some earlier. You mentioned saltwater intrusion, and that's one way with contamination is. That is why it's important for our wells to be properly developed, to know what rate we can pump at and how much we can abstract, so as not to go, for example, below the water table, below sea level, sorry. Two, the development process, Jamaica. In the development process, for one, when we review developments, our potential, our proposed developments, we recommend a raft of measures to ensure that groundwater is not impacted. We ensure, we recommend the type of sewer treatment. We recommend disposal, how it should be disposed. The same thing goes for industrial effluent. We recommend the treatment and how it is disposed of in order not to have it pollute the groundwater. Now we have an issue with, for example, Kingston. Kingston base, as we know, is highly polluted by nitrates. Soak-away pits.
Soak-away.
The issue has resurfaced in yes, Roaring River, Petersfield, those areas. And we know that Roaring River supply quite a bit of water to that region. And we do know that if you know anything about Roaring River, quite a bit of that river, most of that river is groundwater. It's right there between the contact.
The blue hole comes up.
Yes, the blue hole comes up. And the area is surrounded by quite a bit of
industrial
where soak-away is practiced.
Wow.
Now, if you should think of, I know NWC is incrementally slurring the city, right? Good. That is one effective way to protect that groundwater, but it's going to take some time for the aquifer to cleanse itself. So you protect the groundwater by recommending and monitoring the type of sewer treatment and how it is disposed for both sewage and industrial purposes. You monitor how wells are being drilled to ensure that they are within the condition of their license. They don't over drill below sea level, so as not to contaminate the groundwater. So those are ways, tangible ways we can.
That's correct. In addition, I think education is a good way to go also, because a lot of times people will. I think a lot of times when people don't really consider the effects of action. So, for example, if you look at a sinkhole and you're just thinking that's a good place to be done by garbage, solid waste or other kind of waste, solid waste, industrial waste, whatever it is. And then you consider where that sinkhole eventually ends up. Whatever the rainfall that goes there, it's a sinkhole. Water sinks there and that goes towards the bottom of that area there. And then the historical aspect, like this, we did in the article, where just the out of sight, out of mind, dig the pit, let it go, and it accumulates over time. So by the education, I believe, would be a good way for us to see the long-term impact, not just what I'm doing now, what is easier to do it now, but what are the effects further down the road that we have to consider.
Additionally, proper and effective planning is important. Yes, those residents were constructed years ago. There was no planning. They might not have planned developments. Going forward, you have to ensure that every development that is approved, well, from its approval is properly planned. Every development is properly planned and executed. You have to ensure that in vulnerable areas that is a single house, right? The local authority, you have to ensure that that sewage system that person decides to build is in conformity with an accepted standard.
Yes.
If there is a sewer, we have to ensure that that person connected to the sewer line NWC. So all these are measures we have to take to ensure that they go on. Because as was stated earlier, almost 83%.
Yeah. All right. Let's go back to valuing water for infrastructure. NWC is the NWC. Let's start. What would you tell Jamaicans now? What's the key infrastructure that is needed to provide potable water to Jamaica?
Well, it's a big some other things. We replace coal and leaking pipelines. We need to develop more water sources. We need to. You're asking from a specific infrastructure perspective.
The infrastructure, because infrastructure. We spoke about access to water because everybody needs water. Water is our necessity, right? But access to water is something that does need to be paid for and covered. So, in the Jamaican context, what's the crucial infrastructure that people will need to see and understand to say, this is why my bill is this high, and this is why I'm not able to get the water, etc.
It is storage, it is distribution lines, transmission lines, development of sources, conservation, which is not quite infrastructure. It's a mix of all this.
Okay. So this way, then we're going to go into the water fund. How would you present this? Because one of the crucial aspects of this would have been, if I'm not mistaken, assess or an increase in the bill, or an addition of the bill on the residents of those who the water fund would be benefiting. So how would you promote this water fund to those persons to see if they're asking, why am I paying more for this now? What's the benefit that will be for them? How would you go into that to say?
Okay, so to clarify, we have not had any discussion about tacking on a fee to a water bill. I know that that was considered in the payments for ecosystem services, a project that NEPA was running, which is very similar to a water fund, pardon me. In fact, in many cases in the world, water funds are a part of their revenue stream is in fact this payments for ecosystem services where farmers, for example, are given resources that would allow them to do the work in the upper watersheds in the ecosystem that we need in order for it to be healthy, for it to generate the water, have cleaner inputs into dams and catchment areas and into the sea and so on. Another option, so yes, it could be that there is an amount that is on a bill, for example, but you know, there is also the option in the Dominican Republic, what they have done is they have like drip, stream, and river. People could give donations. So if you give, you know, $10, you're a drip donator, or maybe you give $1,000, you're a river, and you know, so people could donate. So how many people live in Kingston? 500,000?
No, more than that.
Suppose each person gave $100. It's a lot of money, and $100, comparatively speaking, is not a lot of money for each person. So if we were to start a fund, a pot of money, and have the right governance structure in place, don't get me wrong, right? We have to have that system in place as well. Then we could start an endowment. We could start to have money, putting that into the hands of where the work needs to happen, which is in upper watersheds. I recently discovered that, and the Nature Conservancy was very happy to have an MOU with NWC in order to restore some land, some denuded lands that were leading into the Hermitage Dam intake. So there's a lot of land up there above in some of the areas we want to have in forest, which has maybe been used for agriculture in the past, maybe fires denuded the land. Some places there are these really thick, oily grasses that once that catches fire, it's like it's gone. So if we were to start an endowment, let's say $100 from every person who lived in Kingston, and actually I would start a Kingston Water Fund rather than something national, because we've been pointing out most parts of Jamaica are well served by water, but we have the biggest population in Kingston, and we have the highest issues with the gap between the water we need and the water that's actually in the system at any particular time in the year. So let's say we had a Kingston Water Fund with $100 from each person. We would go a far way into addressing the start of an endowment and getting, as I said, the money into the hands of the people who do the work on the ground in the watersheds.
All right, so Mr. Williams, what would you say to someone who's listening and is thinking, no, you said everyone can be a farmer, so I want to be a farmer, I want to value water, and I want to have, no, look at this technology thing. Well, how would you encourage them to get into it? What's the best way to start?
Well, Jamaica is a farming country. Almost every household in Jamaica is connected to some farming entity. If you check the statistics, you'll realize that most of our individuals who leave the countryside, who come into Kingston to get an education, they would have had some background in agriculture. So it's not new to anyone about agriculture. We travel the whole country, and you would have seen on the countryside where things have been planted. And you pass this time, the area was cleared. It was mostly soil. You pass it, the next time it's planted. So it's not new to any Jamaican about agriculture. For our institution, for those who are in agriculture, there's training. There's the Ebony Park Heart Academy, does training at our level 1, level 2, level 3. And there are those who would have gone on to the College of Agriculture to do general agriculture skills and break out into different aspects of agriculture. And there are those farmers who are already in the business, who are being trained by the RADA officers and the stakeholders who train individual farmers in best management practices. There are a number of companies in Jamaica that support farmers. And so the knowledge is there. The information is there. You can see it. You can see it in the produce that comes into the cities. And recently, I think it was in October, November, where the price of food was so high. It was ridiculously high. Yeah. And some farmers realize that there's gain in it. There are private people who go into farming expecting to have that high pricing. Luckily, it came down February and dropped significantly. That is not a deterrent, though, because when farmers produce more in the agro parks, the farmers are encouraged to plant much more. So it's not a one straight chain. You're talking about acres of sweet potato or pumpkin, and you plant volume. Some farmers will lose volume too. But the information is out there. We go out from a hard perspective to certify these farmers who are already in the business of farming. So we go there and we certify them. The younger folks realize that my uncle is now a certified agriculture person who has not gone to an institution. How is that possible? And so they cap onto that. Some of them will get an opportunity to move outside of the country. And there's a farm work program that happens right through where movement of labor from different countries. But if they are not certified, they can't go either. So that's an opportunity also for young people to get involved in agriculture, to be certified so they can move. So the information is not limited. It's right out there at our fingertips.
So that's like for the person who's doing it for a major initiative, full time. What about the person who, let's say, young professional, right? Someone who doesn't have access to a plot of land, but here you talk about hydroponics and you're talking about greenhouse and they want something in the backyard. They don't want to go into it full time to say, no, I'm going to provide software or go farmer. but I do want to grow for myself. So,
Yeah.
I can have need to share and I want to give up a little bit. I don't want to necessarily land, I don't have land, but like I said, grow on
Yeah,
property.
right.
So how can those persons
Tap into
that
and
what resources are there for them to learn? You said information is out there. How do you find that information?
and I tell you, farmers are not selfish people. To be honest, farmers are not selfish. They love sharing what they would have done.
Yeah.
We know the JS groups in some of the parishes are very active, and there are those who would join them to get information. The RAD officers are always on the ground, reaching to the farmers. There is demonstration plots in some places. Even sometimes at our local farm stores, there are plants growing there where the sales individuals know about growing the plants, and they can give you on the spot knowledge in terms of how to plant it, what depth, what amount of water it needs, what fertilizer at which rate. It was just yesterday I was talking to one of our farmers who using a fertilizer that we call 11-22 fertilizer on a young seedling. And I'm saying to the individual, it's just planted and you're putting on a fertilizer that has high potassium that is going to retard the growth of the plant. So sometimes it's just education. You want to go into the area, but having a conversation with those who are in it. So the knowledge is out there. You can stop at a farmer's field and talk to a farmer. How is this grown? I didn't know. And somebody told me that they thought pineapple grow on the ground. Or it grows on a tree, And some people do not know where the produce comes from. But when they travel outside, so the knowledge is there. You can go to any of our institutions. You can visit there. Our high schools are available too for field trips or field tours. And you can call Ebony Park. You want to come and look at the facility there. It's for the public. Make an appointment, and it's COVID time now, so all the protocols has to be observed. And you come and look at it, and you can visit the agro park, connect with the individuals who run these parks, and take a ride through the park. Look at how it is done. The farmers are all there ready to share information. Stop that. You think it's easy? Yeah. Okay.
Or pepper. And time.
In a pot, yeah.
All right, we're wrapping, we're coming down to the end. What I'm going to do before I get more to fans, I'm going to ask each panelist just give a brief statement on the value of water, in terms of what's the main thing what's the main takeaway that you want our viewers to get from your perspective about the value of water and the importance of this share. That's on your heart. Just a brief statement, nothing too long. Starting from Mr. Chambers, coming up here.
The value of water is understanding the various uses and the value of those uses, whether it's for economic, whether it's for domestic, and appreciating the, and I use this word again, the finiteness of water, meaning that it doesn't change the same amount a million years ago, the same amount now, and only 1% of that is available for human consumption. So it's having an appreciation for all that factor, knowing and understanding the value, and respecting the resources.
Yeah.
You have the power to change how much water you consume. Right now, today, you can go out to your stores, so those hardware stores, start with your shower tap, just the tap. And then you move to the faucet and then to the toilet. And then if you can't afford a rainwater harvesting system, get some bamboo and your barrel.
The value of water is in its absence. That's when you really appreciate how important what's to you when it's not. So I encourage us all to play our part as we've been talking about. In my specific case, I'm looking at your part and we will do it.
For those farmers who are out there, investing in technology has to be the way forward in our value for water. 80% of water is saved through hydroponic systems. Over 45% of water is saved through drip irrigation systems. And so there's considerable benefit from us investing in technology over a long term. It will work out itself in a long term. And that's where we are with water.
I'd like to say that watershed management is a critical part of water and biodiversity conservation and sustainable use and how we value water and how we treat it. And once we start implementing watershed management in a serious way, we will see that benefit in the nearer term for all of our citizens of Jamaica.
Thank you so much, everybody, for your comments. I really enjoyed your comments. Thank you. This was a very talented and insightful panel, and I'm sure that all viewers learned very much from what we all said today. And so, as we come to the end of this virtual water forum, I want to thank you for being here online on various platforms. I hope that you were educated. I hope that you were informed, and I hope that you were engaged in all of these things. And most of all, I hope that you have appreciated the value of water, realizing that the water we have is finite, it's limited, it's access, it's not free, but it is important, and it's a right that everyone must have. My name again is Jeffrey Marshall, and it was my pleasure to be a moderator. At this time, I'll turn over to the Director for Water Policy, that's Ms. Andrea Spencer, to give the vote of thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen present here with us, and those viewing us online, good afternoon. I would like to thank Senator the Honorable Auburn Hill, Minister without portfolio, for bringing remarks. He reminded us that water is indeed life, and that we should reflect on the importance of water in our daily lives and use only what we need. He also highlighted the government's commitment to provide universal access to water by 2030. On behalf of the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, I express our sincere gratitude to the Water Resources Authority, the National Water Commission, Ebony Park Heart Academy, the Nature Conservancy, and the Water Project Jamaica for accepting our invitation to participate in our virtual water forum. The wealth of information that was imparted today is invaluable. We were reminded of the value of water, the cost of producing water, its importance in our individual lives, and the significant role it plays in so many sectors of our economy. We had a very engaging discussion on water as a social and economic good. While water means different things to different people, we all need to play our part in conserving, as water is vital not only for us as individuals, but also for our nation's social, economic, and environmental well-being. Thank you to our moderator, Mr. Jeffrey Marshall, for his opening remarks and for seamlessly guiding the session. Thanks also to our online audience for their participation, the questions posed, and the feedback presented. We truly appreciate your presence here with us today. Thanks also to the technical team. In closing, the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation looks forward to the continued partnership and collaboration with our key stakeholders and your citizens as you work together to protect and manage our water resources now and in the future. Remember, be a water saver and conserve. Thank you.